Hello and welcome to this video. This is now another extension to the first lesson in my Python for Beginners video tutorial series. And in this video, we're going to be talking about good versus bad variable names. Now, there are some variables that you are just not permitted to do, and it will not even allow you to do it because it's be like a syntax error and so on. But there's other variables that you maybe shouldn't do. You know, you can do, but it's like you shouldn't do. It's like stealing. You can do it, but you shouldn't do it. And in other countries, stealing is handled differently. Well, in this manner, it's just not. It's frowned upon to have variables in a different way in the Python community. Okay, so let's get straight into it. All right. So let's start with the good variables first of all, and we have this variable of name, and we then give it the value of David. This is descriptive name for a person's name. Now, we could extend this even further to then say that it's the first name, or the Christian name, or whatever it is that you want to do to be even more specific, that it's the name of a person or it's a person name. You know, it's all about being descriptive, and that's the whole point there. Is readability is the most important thing. And now user age, you know, this couldn't really be any more explicit that it's the age of a user, and it's a clear name for a user's age. Next thing we have total amount. Now total amount, it's still a little bit ambiguous. Total amount of funds, or total amount of apples, or total amount of Christmas presents, or total amount of turkeys, or something. So it's always more important to kind of, if it's already implied, you know, if it's inferred from the rest of the code, what's the total amount of, or then I would do that. But otherwise, I'd always try to be explicit as much as possible to allow others to infer what it's a total amount of. Yeah. But here, description name for a total amount. But I think I made my point. So bad variables names. There's some names that you just can't use. All right. And these scenarios, Python keywords or starting with a digit. All right. So if, for, and so on, there's a whole bunch of keywords which we're not going to get into here, but you just can't use them as variable names. And as you see here, the only characters, which we'll get into in a minute, is that you can use letters at the beginning, or then the underscore. You cannot start a variable with a digit. All right, and you can't do it. It's not frowned upon. You just can't do it. So variable names should be descriptive and readable is the most important thing, as we discussed. Now x. Now in my previous example, if we were talking about y is equal to mx plus b in here, well, x is the x coordinate of your graph, and y is then the y coordinate of your graph. You know m is the slope, and you know b is then the y-intercept. So, you know, this is okay because this is what you've learned to do, and most people that have actually learnt maths will go, I know what this is, right? But it needs the context. If y is now the person's name, and m is now the age, and x is then how many fish that they have in their fish tank, and b is then, I don't know, my brother's next door neighbour's name, then that makes zero sense completely. So it needs to be descriptive. And A1 to equal apple, well, it's not clear and it lacks context. This is the whole point, is that even going back to this total underscore amount, it lacks context of how many apples or dogs or fish or rows in the database we are talking about, especially if it's then a decimal as well. You know, how many dogs? We've got 1.4 dogs. Well, you know, is that an average now? Is that something? Context is the most important thing. And if you're a junior developer right now, or you're learning, these words I'm saying to you right now, there's going to be the difference between you getting a job and you not getting a job. All right. If you can write great code, but your naming conventions and your best practices are terrible, you won't get the job, I can promise you. All right. So these small attention to detail is what gets you the job. Variable names should follow the snake case convention. Now, I'm going to do another video about this, all right, for best practices. But for the time being, let's just say that you must use snake case for your variables, all right? But watch the next video about why, because it will make some sense, all right? So next we have constants. Now these, as we can see here, these are constants as in pi that are never going to change. And you could put as many of the decimal digits or the digits after it as you want, but you know that if someone says pi inside of your code, if you're doing some other parts of mathematics, then you don't want this changing much. So you want to know that it's a constant, and that is best practice over nearly all programming languages, to always make it uppercase, and then to be followed by or separated by an underscore through all the different words. All right, this is just good practice, all right, to do. You don't have to do it, but when you have like syntax checkers and so on of your code, then you might have a build system that doesn't allow you to build it or deploy it through continuous integration if you don't follow these rules, right? So you've got to be very careful as well. You turn up to your new job and you start writing crap code, and then the CI just says, I ain't doing it. And then the lead developer is just going to say he's crap. And then after your probation period, you're just going to get fired, because you shouldn't even have got through the evaluation period if you're writing crap code like that. All right. Variables, I find it very important, right? If someone can't be bothered to write good code and can't be bothered to format their code either, or take 2 seconds to do it, then don't employ them, because they have a different mentality and they're not worth it. All right. Student underscores here, a list storing student scores. Well, scores, exam scores once again, and now if this is inside of a exams, calculate student exam scores, and then it's a student scores, then it's kind of inferred already that it's student exam scores, right? Or if it, but if the class or the function talks about student stuff, then you could remove the student as well. All right, but so it's always best practice. And when I say best practice, I mean if you want to get a job, best practice type stuff, because there are developers who they don't follow these best practices, and companies who don't follow these best practices, and I can guarantee you their websites will go down and they'll be shut down for a week, because in 2 years later, when there's no long-term support anymore for this code, or the code doesn't compile, or the code doesn't pass any tests or whatever, they have to shut down their website for a whole week. Guess what? This is not a metaphor. This is an actual example of a company I know is now doing this right now, because they wrote bad code in the beginning and they're still writing bad code, obviously, which is why they had to shut their website down for a week. Whereas if you follow best practices line by line all the time and critique your other developers about whether you should or shouldn't call it this variable name, or you should put an extra piece of context into it. This is really a thing to learn from the beginning. Don't learn it later, learn it from the beginning. It's just as important about how you name your variables, to what type of architecture you use, and so on. It's all about the future you reading your code once again and understanding it from the offset. Okay. With that said, thank you very much for watching. If you have watched all the way to the end and you've listened to me right now, you should really give yourself a pat on the back, because you are taking the time to really understand, and you want to understand how you can be a really good developer, right? Now, be it a junior developer, it doesn't matter, but if you're a really good junior developer, over time, because you need time and experience, you will jump up to be a developer. And over time of understanding how to critique junior developers' code, how to then look at code coverage, how to then do code review and so on, and know that your code is always accepted first time, and you write unit tests and so on. These things here, it starts at good versus bad variable names. All right. If you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below. I will answer every question, and please give me a like. If you watched all the way through, it really helps the video get found by other developers that need this assistance, right? So you're not helping me, you're helping other developers to find this information. And if you did find it helpful, please, I'm doing this for free, and that's all I'm asking for, a quick microsecond of your time just to say I like it. And it might help you to find any other videos as well for the algorithm. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video discussing about the best practices of why the Python community loves using snake case. All right, ciao, ciao, goodbye.